After installing this mini-split heat pump ourselves, we finally had an option for keeping us cool during this past summer's record-breaking heat and for heating our home during those times when a wood fire just doesn't make sense. But this project started with something we never expected to find: a complete heat pump system for $278.95. The question was, could we actually make it work? One of the things we've learned since we began our retirement homestead journey is that every improvement we make has to make sense for our wallet and our bodies. When you're on a fixed income, it's easy to put things off for another day. But sometimes the right improvement doesn't just make life more comfortable, it can make life more affordable and, just as importantly, a bit easier on our aging bodies. We've already proven we can heat this house with nothing more than a wood stove. And for many people, including us, that's still one of the least expensive ways to stay warm. But we also have to be realistic. I just can't picture us hauling, splitting, stacking, and feeding firewood the same way we're doing now when we're in our 80s. Here in northern New York, we deal with everything from bitter cold winters to hot, humid summers. Our home has performed remarkably well, but there are those weeks in late fall and early spring when you need a little extra heat without committing to a full-time fire.
48 degrees outside.
Adding a heat pump meant we could burn less firewood during those shoulder seasons. That means less cutting, less splitting, less stacking, and less wear and tear on our bodies over the years. And that's what led us to start looking at mini-split heat pumps. We weren't planning to buy one right away, until one listing stopped us in our tracks. Then we saw this. $286.99. And with coupon applied, $258.29. At that price, it almost seemed too good to be true. And as it turns out, it was. By the next day, the listing was corrected. What had appeared to be a few $100 system was actually selling for over $700. So yes, we got incredibly lucky. But buying the mini-split was only half of the decision. Installing it ourselves, that's where the real story began.
It's okay.
For a few seconds, I honestly wasn't sure how much damage had been done.
Oh, I'm sorry, honey.
The only damage was to the high-pressure line flare. It had been broken off.
Oh, I see where this belongs. I'll put this here.
But to understand how we got here, a few days earlier, once we decided to take the chance, all we could do was wait. The system finally arrived in 2 boxes. One of the boxes looked like it had had a pretty rough trip getting here. Fortunately, the damage turned out to be mostly cosmetic. Otherwise, the line set, communications cables, instructions, everything we thought we'd need to get started was in the box. At the time, we thought we'd found the bargain of a lifetime. We had no idea how much more this project was going to teach us. Every project has that one moment where there's no turning back. But before we could do that, we needed to know that once that hole was cut, everything was going to line up exactly where it belonged. The mounting plate became our reference point for everything that followed. Every measurement, every mark, every decision led to that one spot on the wall. Now, there was nothing left to measure. It was time to trust the plan. It sounds simple enough. Drill 1 3-inch hole through the wall. But after spending years making this house our home, intentionally cutting a hole in it gets your attention. The pilot hole confirmed we were exactly where we wanted to be. To keep the siding from splintering, I finished the cut from the outside. Well, there it was. With the wall opening finished, we could finally feed the refrigerant lines into the house. But this is where we ran into the first surprise. The heat pump had arrived with everything needed to install it, or so we had thought. The included line set was only about 9 feet long, and for our installation, that simply wasn't going to be enough. To reach the outdoor unit, we ended up having to purchase a 16-foot replacement line set.
This is going to be the pain.
Once the replacement lines were connected to the indoor unit, all that was left was to lift it into place. At least,
Now you
that's
could
what we
probably lift
thought.
What am I pulling? Okay,
That's it.
okay, but I'm pulling you too.
I know you are.
As we attempted to maneuver the unit onto the mounting bracket, one wrong movement was all it took.
Okay, let me hold the door.
No.
It's okay, it's okay.
No, it's not.
Oh,
The flare fitting on the high-pressure line had snapped off. That wasn't something we could simply tighten and hope for the best. Now we'd have to order a flaring tool, which meant more money spent and more time lost, almost a week. That mistake also taught us another lesson. The inexpensive flaring tools we looked at all had one thing in common: poor reviews. If we were going to remake a refrigerant connection, we wanted to do it once and do it right. So we invested in a quality flaring kit, complete with a tubing cutter, a deburring tool, and a precision flaring block. With the damaged tubing repaired, we created a short extension to reconnect the indoor unit. It wasn't part of our original plan, but by this point we were learning that this project wasn't too concerned about our original plan.
You want to make sure it's even. That's what everybody was commenting about on the cheap ones. The first one I did, you'll look, it's not even.
Mm-hmm.
So cut it off, made sure I had it clamped good. So we now have some good. All right.
This one?
All right. I'll come right down. Even with that, there you go. Just
Right
down
there?
a little bit. Down. Yep. Right there. Right there. Yeah, because it'll have a slight. That's it. Perfecto. That's good.
With our new, shorter connection, now we could just connect the short lines to the rear of the head unit, bend them to run through our wall opening, and then again to attach them to the longer line set that will connect to the condenser under our porch.
All right.
With the line set repaired and the indoor unit finally getting mounted properly with our new short extensions, it felt like we turned a corner. The biggest surprises were behind us, and for the first time since opening the box, it actually looked like we were going to finish this project.
All right.
Outside, everything finally started coming together. The short section coming through the wall connected to the longer line set we'd already routed beneath the porch. Every connection meant one less thing left to do. Once we'd gotten the outdoor unit moved into position, the whole system finally began to look complete. After weeks of planning, measuring, waiting for parts, and solving unexpected problems, we could finally see what we'd been working towards.
Let's see how far.
The electrical connections were fairly straightforward. We only had 2 connections that had to be made. The first from the main power supply at the breaker panel, and the second was our communications line to the head unit inside of the house. And then the line set needed to be connected to the compressor. I used nylock gasket thread sealer on all of my line set connections. These were some of the last pieces of the puzzle. Once power reached the system, mechanically, everything was finally ready. But before we could switch it on, there was one step that couldn't be skipped. Before we could pull a vacuum on the system, there was one more unexpected purchase. This mini-split uses the newer R32 refrigerant, which meant I needed a vacuum pump and gauge set compatible with that system. I asked around, but nobody I knew had one that I could borrow. So once again, another order went in. By this point, our bargain-priced mini-split was beginning to collect quite a few supporting actors. Fortunately, the kit arrived with everything we'd need. The vacuum pump, manifold gauges, adapters, all the fittings needed to evacuate and to test the system. It may not be the most exciting part of the installation, but it's one of the most
Getting
important.
ready to try something I've never done in my life. Let's hope this works. Turn our vacuum pump on.
Now, with the vacuum holding steady and the refrigerant released into the system, there was only one thing else left to do. Restore the power and see if everything we'd worked so hard on would finally come to life.
Oops.
Well, that definitely wasn't supposed to happen.
That worked.
For one very long second, I honestly wondered if we'd just destroyed our brand new mini-split. I switched the breaker back off and headed towards the solar shed to check the inverter breakers. But before I even got there,
Alan, the power's back on.
that was actually good news. If the inverter had reset itself, the problem probably wasn't with the mini-split. I knew the wiring inside the breaker panel was correct, That only left one place to look. And that's when I saw it. I'd crossed the two hot legs inside the disconnect.
Mounted.
Instead of keeping each wire on its proper side, I'd accidentally landed one black and one white together.
Got in.
The moment power reached the disconnect, it created a dead short. Fortunately, that's exactly what the breakers are designed to protect against.
All right. We're set for the next step at least.
Once the wiring was corrected, there was only one thing left to do. This time, nothing happened. And that's exactly what we wanted. Seeing that display light up and watching those louvers slowly open was a pretty satisfying moment. After weeks of planning, waiting for parts, solving problems, and learning a few lessons along the way, we'd done it. Mistakes happen on projects like this. The important part is stopping long enough to figure out why before flipping that breaker again. Getting it installed was only the first step. Now comes the part that really matters. Can an inexpensive mini-split handle a northern New York winter? And was it really worth everything we put into it? We'll be finding out over the months ahead.